Bonjour, messieurs, dames. Hello and welcome to the FIJEV Wine Talk at Wine Paris. Wine journalism in digital time, storytelling with AI, that's our subject today. With me are at the panel Janna Meppelink from the Netherlands, Robert Joseph from UK, and Joel Payne from Yale. Germany, I could say at the moment you are living in Germany. Yeah, all right. And my name is Wolfgang Junglas, I'm from Germany. I have been working as a wine journalist and TV journalist for public German television. I've been working as a wine journalist since 1987. In that time, quite a lot has changed. I'm president of the German Wine Journalist Federation WEINGUIDE and president of FIJEV, the International Wine Journalist Association. And also not to forget, and that's why I'm here, because I'm not getting paid for that. So I'm here because I am a wine journalist by passion. I don't know what that means, and I don't know whether you are a wine journalist by passion, but I think having a passion helps you getting through life. I would like to guide you through 45 hopefully interesting minutes by firstly stimulating your palate with some information about wine journalism. Years ago, only a few stars dominated the wine ratings. Today it seems like wine bloggers, wine rating websites and apps are replacing quality wine journalism. And with AI, everybody can easily write a wine report, even people who have never tasted a wine before. Is wine journalism still needed, or is it enough that millions of users click just a like for their favorite wine? In which direction will wine journalism develop? Let's have a quick look back how it all started. Of course, it started in antique times, Greek antiques, Homer, Aristoteles, some pretty intelligent guys, and not to forget the Romans, Plato and Palladius, for example, explained how to grow wines. So wine journalism has a great long tradition. We shouldn't forget that. It's nothing that has been invented only recently. Until the 15th century, it was only monks who wrote about wine, and then printed books from the 16th century described vintages. Later on in the 19th century, the modern wine literature began. Scientists explained viniculture and published new developments. Especially André Julien, French writer and pioneer wine writer. Wine historian Hugh Johnson wrote about him. He was the foundation stone of modern writing about wine. We also have got an English guy, Cyrus Redding, perhaps you do remember his book, A History and Description of Modern Wines, 1833. So, what was it like in the 20th century? In UK, Europe and US, wine literature was booming. An intellectual elite wrote about wine history and modern wine. There were all stars in the wine journalism sky. Guides with point system were successful in the late 20th century, the age of the fine art of wine critic, I would describe it. Consumers and wine professionals followed the guides slavishly. In those days you needed an expert to tell you what was in your class. And not to forget, 1987, FIJEV was founded. So that was the golden age of wine critics. That has all changed dramatically in the 21st century. We have entered the age of smart wine critic. Label scanning apps such as Vivino and Delectable are on the market, one of many apps and websites available. Or WineDrink, patented artificial intelligence tech learns your preferences and evolves with each use. The app tracks likes and dislikes. It curates recommendations and even suggests gifts for other users with whom you are connected. There is a huge digital market out there. We are just some figures. At Vivino, around 65 million users have rated more than 1.4 million wines. But for some wine lovers, the one ultimate app is still missing. and that is this one. We are still all waiting for that, and well, until that is being invented, we all have to order wine. The question is, do wine critics matter? The British wine blogger Jamie Good thinks yes, because some opinions matter more than others. True or not true?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of food for thought here, and what I would like now is to discuss it with our experts. We have to my right wine thinker and editor at large at MEININGERS International, Robert Joseph. Welcome.
Thank you.
Applause.
No, you don't need.
I'm a television guy. I need applause. Otherwise, I think you are not listening. Chief editor of VINUM MEININGERS, Payne. And wine book author and wine columnist Janna Rijpma Meppelink from the Netherlands. So first question goes to all of you. How would you describe the actual situation of wine journalism? I would like to start with Robert.
So I'd like to give a little history because I started in 1983. I started Wine Magazine in 1983 and I started writing for the Sunday Telegraph newspaper. And I did that for about 12 or 22 years until 2005. Since then, I have actually been producing wine, and my life also changed because I was an editor of a consumer wine magazine until 2005. After that, I joined my colleague here, Mr. Payne, and then subsequently continued editing a trade magazine for professionals. As I say, I now produce wine, so I've had my foot in a number of camps. I've written 25 books, and I've, as I said, done news columns. People were not interested in wine in the 1980s. They're not interested in wine in the 90s. It's about 15% of people are interested in wine. I was shown the data from the newspaper I wrote for. I have seen a lot of data in a lot of places. A small number of people are interested in wine. I stopped writing about wine as a critic in 2005 after the 10th dinner party where the person sitting next to me did not know that Chablis was made from Chardonnay. And they all knew far more than I do about opera, about rally driving, about all sorts of other things. These were sophisticated people who earn more money than I have and have more degrees than I have. So number one, the number of people interested in wine has always been limited, whatever the books and the quality has been. Number two, the number of people who have ever made money, made a living writing about wine without doing anything else has always been very limited. And I think that's really quite important. We have always relied on free trips. We've always relied on free samples, and there's always been a blurred line. The blurred line today has almost gone. So that's the second point. Last point is that speaking as an editor, both of trade and consumer writing, most wine writing has been bad. And, with respect, passion. Firstly, passion doesn't make you good. There are a lot of passionate winemakers out here making bad wine, but they're passionate. And passion does not make you a good writer, or a good actor, or a good musician. And I have edited so much bad writing that's been a problem. And so much of the good writing that I've seen has been written by lawyers and doctors and dentists who have not been paid for writing it. And lastly, I have seen much better writing done by AI than much of the writing that I have had to edit as an editor.
Interesting statement. Yeah, you can applaud if you want to.
You don't have to.
Robert is not only a very good wine taster, he's a very good speaker, that's what I think. I'm always impressed, and I could listen to him endlessly. So, Janna, after that statement, what is your description of the actual wine journalist situation?
Well, you know, it's great to have so much energy next to me. You can say, yes, I agree, or you disagree, and therefore we are here. Let me introduce myself a little bit. I started in 1995 in the wine business. I was invited to write as a journalist for all daily papers, magazines. glossies till 2010, 2015. I created my own website, and I changed also my writing into consulting, because that makes money. So in the early years, you know, in the 90 years and in the 2000s, you really get paid. I can remember that I made a column, and every column was €400. A column, okay? And every week I could post it. So only with these columns you had already a nice kind of salary. In 2008, we all remember, it completely changed. Suddenly it was not really important anymore for gastronomics, for wine critics to print in a daily newspaper or in a magazine, because it was not so interesting anymore, so not so important. So all the people who were writing for them, they throw away in the poubelle, as they say in France. Huh? So that is really serious. So I am not that negative as you are, but we have to understand artificial intelligence is there. And when you know it's there, you can say it's my enemy or it's my friend. And I will say it's my friend. So I will take it, but we need to understand that we make laws. So, because when you ask artificial intelligence to write a story, you have to know the knowledge to read the story of artificial intelligence and say, hey, there are ridiculous things inside of this. Otherwise, also, the copycat. I mean, we copy all, because artificial intelligence always gives you the same stories. So what we're doing, we make a blur out of all the wine stories. We copy and copy and copy each other. But who were the original people who created these lines? You know, this is ridiculous. There was somebody, maybe you, or you, created lines of this story, and you don't get paid. And you know, there is a lot of issues in Hollywood nowadays with all the actors who said, hey, listen, you can copy me. You can make a movie without introducing me and renting me for that movie. And we do exactly the same. So we have to be, the word trust is really essential nowadays. And being there, have contact with, that you really know, because now we make jokes. You said, are you really in front of me or are you a hologram? Yeah? But this is something what is really interesting to know, that you are really there. You go to visit the people, you go to see the winemaker, you go, and I think, of course, it's important to understand that this will come back. It will be more important than ever to be in contact with reality.
Thank you very much, Janna.
I'm not, by the way, disagreeing with that. So.
I've been visiting different wine producers together with Janna, and I can honestly say you can't replace Janna when she's talking to wine producers. You know, that is so original. I can't imagine you being replaced by a hologram. And Joël, what do you think about the actual situation in wine journalism?
Well, actually, I was rather surprised by one of the numbers that Robert mentioned. 15%.
That's a maximum.
Yes, I would have said it was considerably less than that. But I think that's true of many other fields, and so this is not unusual. We're not writing about, but even football, I don't know how many people are really crazy about the game. And so I'm not so much worried about that. We're writing for a very small part of the general public that is looking for sometimes emotion, sometimes new ideas, sometimes an understanding that they do not have, because some of you might be specialists in Grenache, and other people know a little bit more about Grüne Veltliner. And so this is, we all know what we do well and what, you know, where our weaknesses are, or we should. I'm also, you know, I don't think there was ever a time in the past where wine journalism was particularly well paid. You didn't mention them here, but the first books I read were from people like André Simon or Alex Lechine or Michael Broadbent. And all of these people had either a finger in another pie or a vested interest in writing about what they were doing, or they made their money from something else. And yes, it's true what Robert said before. He's read a lot of very good pieces by doctors and lawyers, and I have to admit that. I said, you know, when we were working together, one of the things that I learned, because I only spent about 3 years as an editor, really, and it was very clear to me that the people that knew the most about wine were very often poor writers, and the people that had less true interest in wine were those that managed the language best. But we all know in each of our countries, you know, and especially I was born and raised in the United States, I have to admit to my discomfort, most Americans cannot speak very good English. And so expecting them to write a good article, much less about wine, is it's a little bit like Sisyphus rolling the ball up the hill. And so we've always been on a somewhat unusual ground. And I think you're absolutely correct to talk about, we have had the opportunity of living in the golden age of wine writing. I started about the same time as Robert did, 1980, late 1980s, writing about wine. And we were surprised that people would actually even pay us for an article. And then we were pleased as, you know, the salaries started to rise. And this has gone south, and I think we all know that. And the question is, one, at that level, how do we distinguish between people still working professionally in spite of having other interests? You know, some of the worst things that I've seen are when you're attracting your clientele because you're also doing road shows or presentations, and actually what we're saying is it's the wine producers themselves who are financing the whole venture. And we all know that the Vladimir Putins and the Xi Jinpings and the Donald Trumps of our world, they want to have an influence on what is written as well. And now if Donald Trump is elected, he may well choose this path. Artificial intelligence troubles me less than perhaps some of my colleagues here, because I still think that we need somebody who has spent time doing something. You still need someone who's gone out there and done the spade work. And if you want to write, let's not talk about Burgundy, because everybody would like to taste Musigny or Richebourg from the top producers. But if you want to write about Corbière, or if you want to write about Pouilly, you've got to take a week or 10 days of your time and visit the estates, know what is happening, and that's always going to be spade work. And yes, you have to have the passion. Perhaps you have to be independently wealthy to do that in a certain way, or that certainly helps. And so artificial intelligence is never going to replace that kind of work. Now, it can build on that if you publish things free of charge on your own blog or whatever it is of this sort. But I think we're moving into a day where it's not one person or two who have a lot to say. I agree with Jamie Good. Yes, some ideas are more valid than others. Some people have a little bit better palate. Just like, you know, some people score more goals, some people are better at certain kinds of surgery, some people are better at tasting and writing. And I don't think it's going to be one person in the future. I think it's going to become a mosaic. if 10 people write positively about the wine you're producing, you can probably say, I've done a good job. If 10 people don't like your wine, then you can not say, oh, he doesn't like it because he prefers my neighbor's wine, or he's being paid by somebody else. But we all know that that's not what happens, especially when you do trade shows or members of juries on panels. We see there are 2 votes that go in this direction and 3 that go in the other. In the end, it becomes mathematics. And it's, if more of the stones, you know, it's a little bit like playing Go. If more of the stones are moving in the right direction, you're likely to win.
Thank you very much, Well, sharing that with us. And you mentioned AI. Robert, you are editor-in-large for MEININGERS magazine, a printed magazine. Are you actually using AI already, ChatGPT or something
We
like
are
that?
not at the magazine. I've done a lot of experimentation with it. I think, can I just ask something? We need to define wine writing. We're talking about it as a blurred thing. We have what Joel was talking about and referring to, we go to Puglia, we spend a week or 2 weeks, we visit each of these people. Do we just say, here are reviews of their 10 wines, or do we describe their personal histories and what their dogs look like and so on? That's one strand. We also just have the Robert Parker. Robert Parker never visited anywhere. Very rarely visited places. What he did was he bought wine, or was given wine to taste. He tasted it and said, I like it, I don't like it. And it seemed to work pretty well for him. Let's not forget that. So, and the Australians would say, oh, if he came here, you know, he'd understand our wine and we'd be more recommended and so on. Well, he didn't, and it didn't happen. It didn't seem to matter that much apart from for the producers. Second form of wine writing is what the wineries want, which is press releases.
Yes.
Which they write themselves very badly, or they pay PR companies to do rather better. You know something? AI does that brilliantly. If I was in the public relations business, I would be very worried, because AI will do that job very wonderfully. So, and then there are, you know, there's other elements, but we talk about the story of wine. Now, somebody Joel and I have both worked with, and you both know, Felicity Carter, stood up at a wonderful conference, gave a presentation at a conference, at a bloggers conference a few years ago, and explained wine storytelling. And she took the world's worst book as an example of what wine writing does not do. So what is an average wine? What is the average wine article? John inherited his vineyard from his father and his grandfather, and he makes the same wonderful wine as they did, but more wonderfully, and he's won these awards, and he's planting a new vineyard. Second one is Jack was a gynecologist, or a lawyer, or a dentist, and one day he decided to make wine, and now he's making wine, and he makes wonderful wine, and he got an award, and he's planting a new vineyard. Those are the only 2 stories. There is never anything negative. You never read an article about the man whose wife left him because he was so passionate about wine and didn't care enough about her and so on. And there are lots of those stories. You don't hear about the stories about the bank not paying the bills. You don't hear the story about the neighbors stopping them doing it, etc. Those are real stories. So Felicity Carter took 50 Shades of Grey, the world's worst book. But the thing about the world's worst book is you read it because good things happen to her, bad things happen to her. You don't know what the next thing is going to happen. Most wine stories are boring, unless you are so passionately interested in that person or that region. And when I was writing columns in the newspaper, I loved writing those stories. I tried to make them interesting, and my editor said, can you just tell us what is on sale in the shop? What people want is recommendations. Can AI do recommendations? Yes, it can take what other people have recommended and bring them together and say 7 people have recommended this wine, and it will be doing a good job. So AI will be doing the press releases, and it will also be doing a lot of the recommendations. And the last thing I'm going to say to you as a publisher, as an editor, and I'd ask you, when you pick up a number of magazines, a lot of magazines these days are full of advertorial. Yeah. It is editorial written because it's been paid for. And then you have other articles written by journalists who've been given a free trip to visit Puglia or to visit Domain X. I challenge you to tell which are which. As a producer, I don't need advertorial. I just give somebody a free trip and they write a lovely piece. And if they don't, the AI, I can just ask the AI to do it, and it'll be like the press release. I think we need to take that as a beginning. But do we use AI? No, but could I see it working? And could I demonstrate to you in half an hour how well AI could write wine material as press releases, which you're going to check for errors, because that's what you do. I can do that.
So Janna, what is left for wine journalists to write about divorced wine producers?
Well, you know, the fact is that I want to respond on this because, you know, is artificial intelligence brings you back the joy in your job? Or do you say, okay, it's a replacement for me, I can go to find another job? Because you just ask artificial intelligence, write me that piece, and I'm going to work in a grocery. I mean...
Janna, where is the joy in the average press release? These are written by people who didn't want to write them. They're being paid, and the news is that Domain X has released a new wine with a blue label rather than a black label, and they've just won a gold medal somewhere, and please send 500 words to this publication and that publication, and they will publish it. There's no joy in that.
Okay, but that is just one part of everything. I mean, the story of wine is much brighter.
Yeah, I'm not saying that the people going to Puglia and doing the visits are not going to have a job. I'm saying let's define what wine writing is, and part of wine writing is the very dull press release or recommendation work that you will see AI will do quite well.
So you say artificial intelligence is a friend.
Yes, like you, we agree.
And it's a friend, and so we have to use it.
Yep.
But I still say, when you with me going to Puglia, and we see the new facts, and we taste the new wines, and we see everything, and we write this in an article, it will be in the computer. Yes? And the computer, artificial intelligence, use our text. I mean...
No, sorry, the plagiarism of AI is a whole separate issue, but I think that's a momentary problem. Today we see it with my partner is a photographer. Her images might be being stolen, and we are seeing a fight at the moment between the New York Times and so on. This is a momentary problem. This will be sorted out. If we focus today about the plagiarism of AI, we're missing the point. It's not going to be the problem in 5 years or 10 years, because the New York Times is fighting our fight for us. So let's not focus on that today, because it's a problem for this week and next week, but it's not going to be the problem in 5 years. However, the thing that we need to know is that the AI, which is incredibly good today, the quality of some of the writing or what it's creating is incredibly good. You would not know it was not written by a human being. It will be better. Mm-hmm. The nature of artificial intelligence is that it improves itself. Mm-hmm. And most of us as wine writers are not going to get better as quickly as the AI will get better.
Nevertheless, artificial intelligence can only improve himself so good and will be better. Without us, it will not. When you don't get feed, you don't feed the computer, you will not grow.
Janna, we agree.
Okay.
But however, who is feeding it? Because when you go to Puglia, so my friend Tim Atkin does reports. He pays people to do reports. He goes to Argentina for 2 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever. Who is paying for this?
Yeah, but
right? Are we getting the free ticket from Puglia? If Puglia is paying for this, then it's advertising. Or if I'm selling reports, that's terrific, but how many people are buying those reports? But it costs me or somebody a lot of money to travel around Puglia. The thing that nobody talks about, by the way, is with bottles of top wine today, Burgundy. How many people in this room can afford to buy bottles of Burgundy to drink themselves with any regularity? Hands up.
Who is the owner of lovely Burgundy wines? Nobody.
Right?
Okay.
So we have a problem. The only way we can taste Burgundy is people giving it to us. And then, what about wines from other places?
Or visiting the estates.
But how do,
you know,
but that costs me money, and I have to get in. But that's time, and my point is that when those wine writers that you talk about, they were able to afford, they were usually middle-class people, but middle-class people, they could afford to buy Bordeaux, they could afford to buy Burgundy. Today, very few people I know can afford to buy Grand Cru Burgundy, can afford to buy Cru Classé Bordeaux. So we are now the slaves of the system. And if we taste about, can I afford Priorat? Can I afford to buy Pingus very often? Can I afford to buy the Brunello di Montalcino very often? We need to be aware of this and not push it under the carpet.
So we are similar like reporters of new cars. I remember I went to South Africa and there was a press conference from Mercedes-Benz introducing their new God knows what car, and they flew in reporters from all over the world to South Africa to show them their new car in South Africa. And of course you can imagine what the reports were like. So is there no independent wine journalism?
There is, but how much of it is there? And the best independent wine journalism is users online. So one of the things, let's just remember, Rudy Kurniawan, the famous cheat. Which wine journalist exposed Rudy Kurniawan? Anyone tell me?
The producer?
No. It was before that. It was not the producer from New Zealand.
Yeah.
It was the wine berserkers.
Okay.
These are Americans who love drinking wine, they have a lot of money, and they talk to each other about the expensive bottles of wine they drink. Premox, premature oxidized Burgundy. Which wine writer, and I'm quite angry about this, seriously, because you're paying 50 or 100 euros for a bottle of wine that is oxidized 3 years after the harvest, and nobody's telling you which wine writer exposed premature oxidized Burgundy.
Not AI.
No, but hold on, it was unpaid consumers talking to each other. And the journalists, including one of France's most famous wine writers, said to me, oh, I never wrote about it, but I don't buy it. So, yes, independent may exist, they may not exist, but, you know, how independent are they? And let's also say something that's also happening. Some of the independent journalists, how do they make a living? They are now running tastings. You put your wine into their you ask them to taste your wine, if you get 90 points, whatever the points, you can put your wine into their event that people pay to come and taste, and you can buy a table. Well, isn't that interesting? So there's an interest in them to give me 90 points so that I will take a table that I paid for. We've moved away from, they're independent, they're not being paid by anybody directly, but they have a motive not necessarily to behave independent.
Well, you look like as if you want to say something.
No, I agree. These are problems that I've seen coming for a long time, or at least for the last sort of 10 or 12 years, where it's become incredibly difficult for most wine writers to survive only from the ink that they put on a piece of paper. I'm a little bit less worried about some of the things with the expensive wines, because I know perfectly well I can visit Romani Conti, I can visit Armand Rousseau and taste these wines. And so, yes, can we buy them ourselves? No. But is tasting them at the estate the same thing as being flown to South Africa by Mercedes?
Yes.
I don't think that is quite the case. And then when you're talking about wine writing, I agree, most wine writing is poor and boring, but most writing is poor and boring. And we all know when we look at articles in a newspaper or in a magazine, if we're not captivated by the first paragraph, we move on. And in any case, there's too much information out there. It's impossible to digest more than a fraction of what is possible to read. And nonetheless, we still have people, and I think this is where Felicity is exactly right. The best wine writing is storytelling, but in a positive light. Storytelling where there's emotion. And we do have, if I'm talking about English wine writing, which I know with German or French a bit better, we do have people like Hugh Johnson was a master of this, Andrew Jefford today. There are people who can write pieces where you just start reading and you want to continue.
I agree.
And that is not only wine writing or journalism, that is books. Which books do we pick up and read from start to finish? Sometimes in a single night, just because we're so enamored. And that's what wine writing has to be if we're going to have a future. Yes, there are problems. Perhaps you're right. Can artificial intelligence do that? Perhaps it will learn. I don't know. I haven't seen those sorts of pieces today.
But I have to admit that the unity, I mean, when you are a wine writer, you can make a unique piece. I mean, you forget that artificial intelligence can make a wonderful story, but it can't make my story. That is very important. So when I ask artificial intelligence, give me an article in Dutch, I get a nice story, but boring. There is nothing but they can see that when I make the same story, I make a nice intro and a different thing. The source of the wine writer is in it.
Look, I agree. Listen, I write a column every single week, and I try to do the same.
Yeah.
We always focus on the best. It's like saying, will such and such replace the Grand Cru aboard? Will artificial meat replace Wagyu beef? No, artificial meat has to replace burgers. AI has to replace the burgers of wine writing. And we have to say that most wine writing is hamburgers. And AI will do very well replacing the hamburgers.
So we are the caviar.
But we need actually to really take a fresh look, and I agree with my friends here. Great writing is great writing that happens to be about wine, that happens to be about football, that happens to be about anything. But the idea of wine writing as being some sacred area, I'm just going to differ one point very quickly with Joel though. Is there a difference being flown out to Mercedes and going to a Romani Conti? Not really, except that in both cases you're not seeing the whole thing. Romani Conti will not show you the vintages they don't want to show you. If I look at a car magazine today, it will look at all the cars and it will tell me what is wrong with the new Audi and what is right with the new Ferrari or Mercedes or whatever. Wine writers only see the wines they are shown. And they see the wines they are shown at the time where the wine companies want them to see them. So we don't have the proof that, oh, this wine is looking old after 5 years. Or we don't have the comparisons that we might like to have that we would put together ourselves. We are very much the victim. And the thing that we need to remember, every one of us in this industry, is that wine companies have very little money to spend on marketing compared to still wines, compared to champagnes and spirits. Their marketing budget is spent on us. When they invite us to lunch, to visit their winery, or to anything else, that comes out of their marketing budget. Now, they're not inviting us because we're their friends, because they want to spend time with us. They want us to help them sell wine. We should never forget that we are, in those situations, we are their tool.
Can I have a question I mean, we are all colleagues, isn't it? Is somebody here already feels replaced by artificial intelligence?
I come to you. Wait. Please.
I'm organizing a project financed by my sponsor in Silicon Valley to combine personal wine writing notes with artificial intelligence. That works quite well.
Yeah, I know that project.
And can you just give a little bit more information about it?
I started at this moment giving tasting, and they asked me to write down only my personal impressions. No, not a whole wine, no, just I like this wine because I like the acidity. I like some more freshness. And then they combined it with the professional tasting notes released three months later. And that worked.
That's
Perfect. Thank you very
There's a
much.
lady behind her.
Yes.
She wants to say something.
Okay.
Is that possible?
We have 2 minutes for questions and then our 45 minutes are over, so please.
Hi, my name is Jessica Landa Jesus, and I'm a freelance mostly on the food and travel space, but I do write about wine from the travel and food perspective. But one of the things, it's not a question, it's more an opinion about AI, because I'm a publisher and I also am a freelance writer. It's one thing that we didn't talk about was using it as a tool for research and keyword research specifically for SEO and things like that. So it's not necessarily, oh, I'm using AI to write the story for me, but how is this story going to place? And I think that for a lot of us who are freelance here, you know, there is a market for connoisseurs and there's a general market. And when you're writing for travel and leisure, or you're writing for eating well or bon appetit, you know, they need to make money, and they need to make money on these stories. So I feel that some of these opinions can be a little bit, you know, short-sighted in terms of, you know, the quality of the writing or the things that they're writing about, because at the end of the day, you're at the mercy of the editors, and the publisher needs to make money.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
True.
Very clear. Yeah.
Thank you. And you have got a question or a comment as well?
Hello everyone, Konstantinos Sturgidis from Greece. I've been in the business, my first article in 87. Never before have I felt that we're at such a crossroads. I think that the whole wine narrative is based on the fact that it's a complex product. This whole show is based on the complexity of wine, and we have always been the reflection of that complexity. We're here to explain wine and to get people to become passionate about it. But the thing is that now, not only with AI, but with the internet and everything else, the attention span of people has become so short that I just don't think that we can go back to that kind of journalism. I mean, good journalism.
Time needs
Gerald
time.
Asher, Nicholas Faith, who wrote these fantastic, within context, articles about wine. They would need 10,000, 8,000 words to explain a region or something. Who's going to read nowadays so many words? First of all, on the internet, you're not allowed. So I don't even know if we could go back to that, and I'm afraid about the future of wine, not only us, but the wine as we know it, because of all the young Gen Z stuff and everything else that you all know. It's been discussed all over. So I mean, it's not a question, it's just a small intervention. And I would like, on this opportunity, because I was one of the founders, to say, to just mention Jean-Bertin Hulot, our good old colleague who passed away many years ago. Most of you don't know him.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was the founder of FIJEV, a very French, very fine French guy, who was always very happy when he was well received. He would say, ils ont une belle structure d'accueil.
Oui.
Yeah.
That's true.
Can I just pick up on, I think you made a very good point there, but an Australian wrote recently, and a big Australian premium producer said he is selling more wine in other countries through one Instagram mention than he's getting from critics. So, you know, it's not just AI we need to be thinking about, we need to be thinking about other forms of communication that are competing with the idea of writing words about wine. Thank you.
So,
Thank you very, very much. 45 minutes did fly by in no time. Thank you very much for our panel,
Another
Joel
session
Payne,
tomorrow.
Janna Meppelink,
Thank
and
you.
Robert Joseph. Just wait a
Thank you.
second because we need to do a selfie. And thank you, you for coming, sharing your precious time with us. I think the discussion will follow up, and the impressions of today you will find at the FIJEV YouTube channel. Enjoy the wine trade fair and see you. Thank you.
thanks for coming. So, what
Yes, and I
a
remember-
fire dynamite
Yeah.
next to me.
Yeah, but he's always been like that.